In today's globalized world, the movement of people across borders is usually encouraged through international agreements and open visa regimes. However, certain geopolitical tensions, diplomatic disputes, security concerns, and internal policies have led some countries to impose restrictions on travelers from specific nations. In 2025, several countries have maintained policies or de facto practices that either severely restrict or completely bar entry to Indian passport holders. In this video, we will explore the top 10 countries where Indians face entry bans or insurmountable hurdles. The information provided here is based on publicly available data, travel advisories, and expert analyses, and it is subject to change as global circumstances evolve. 1. North Korea. North Korea remains one of the world's most isolated states. Known for its strict government controls and closed borders, the country has always maintained an extremely limited tourist regime. In 2025, North Korea continues to impose severe restrictions on all foreign nationals. Indian citizens, like many others, are only permitted entry as part of an organized tour that must be pre-approved by state authorities. The visa process is opaque and independent travel is strictly prohibited. The lack of direct diplomatic channels further complicates any assistance that might be required by Indian visitors. While there is technically a process for obtaining permission, the practical reality is that independent Indian travelers are effectively barred from entering the country. 2. Afghanistan. Afghanistan's prolonged periods of conflict have rendered it a highly volatile destination. Since the Taliban's resurgence in power in 2021, the security environment has deteriorated markedly. The Indian government continues to advise against any travel to Afghanistan, citing significant risks such as terrorism, armed conflict, and kidnappings. In 2025, the Taliban-led authorities maintain an unstable administrative system where visa issuance is inconsistent and often subject to sudden policy shifts. With the absence of effective consular support for Indian citizens and an overall breakdown of reliable governance, Afghanistan remains one of the most inaccessible countries for Indians, with entry being effectively denied in all but the most exceptional and controlled circumstances. 3. Libya. Libya has struggled to achieve national stability since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The ongoing civil unrest, factional conflicts, and the presence of armed groups have left the nation in a state of persistent insecurity. For Indian travelers, the Libyan government has not only issued travel advisories, but has also enforced a visa regime that is nearly impossible to navigate under current conditions. With fragmented consular services and a chaotic political environment, even if an Indian national manages to secure a visa, the likelihood of safely entering or remaining in Libya is extremely low. The situation in Libya is a stark reminder of how internal strife can translate into comprehensive travel restrictions for foreign nationals. 4. Syria. The civil war in Syria, which has raged on since 2011, continues to affect the country's ability to operate a stable government. Although the Syrian regime maintains diplomatic relations with several countries, its policies have become increasingly restrictive for foreign visitors, particularly from nations with strained diplomatic ties. Indian citizens attempting to enter Syria face significant bureaucratic hurdles and security risks. The process of obtaining a visa is complicated by internal divisions and the need for special clearances in many regions. While there are instances of controlled entry for humanitarian reasons or for certain diplomatic groups, regular tourism or business travel for Indians remains virtually non-existent. The harsh realities on the ground mean that, for all practical purposes, Syria is not open to Indian passport holders in 2025. 5. Yemen. Yemen's humanitarian crisis is one of the most severe in the world today. Years of war, political fragmentation, and economic collapse have left the country with crumbling infrastructure and a pervasive state of insecurity. The Yemeni government, grappling with internal conflicts and foreign interventions, has imposed strict entry restrictions to manage the limited flow of foreigners into the nation. For Indians who are advised by their government to avoid traveling to Yemen, the possibility of obtaining a visa is extremely remote. Even when visas are theoretically issued, the risks associated with travel, ranging from terrorism to civil unrest, make entry into Yemen nearly impossible. The combination of humanitarian concerns and security issues firmly places Yemen on the list of countries where Indian travelers are effectively unwelcome. 6. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has long been a key destination for Indian expatriates and pilgrims alike. However, recent policy shifts have introduced significant challenges for Indian passport holders. The kingdom's efforts to regulate its labor market and tighten its immigration policies have resulted in more stringent visa procedures. As of 2025, while Indian citizens can still enter Saudi Arabia for religious pilgrimages and select business purposes, the broader category of tourist visas has been severely curtailed. The introduction of rigorous health protocols, mandatory pre-travel testing, and extended quarantine requirements further complicate the process. Additionally, the implementation of the kafala sponsorship system for foreign workers has created an environment where unauthorized entry or overstaying can lead to immediate repatriation and legal complications. These measures have collectively made Saudi Arabia a challenging destination for many Indian travelers who do not fit into the narrowly defined categories of permissible entry. 7. Israel. Israel is known for its advanced security apparatus and stringent entry controls, driven largely by ongoing regional conflicts. Although India and Israel share warm diplomatic relations, the security protocols at Israeli borders are exceptionally strict. Indian travelers, particularly those with recent travel histories to neighboring conflict zones, often face heightened scrutiny upon arrival. The Israeli government has instituted policies that require detailed background checks and security interviews for visitors from regions perceived to be high risk. While not an outright ban, the practical realities of these measures mean that many Indians encounter significant delays, interrogations, and in some cases, entry denials. The selective application of these policies, combined with the highly sensitive nature of regional security, effectively restricts regular Indian tourism and travel to Israel in 2025. 8. China. China's relationship with India has been marked by both cooperation and tension over the years. In 2025, geopolitical considerations, coupled with internal regulatory changes, have led to a more restrictive visa regime for Indian nationals. China's emphasis on maintaining strict border controls and managing health security has resulted in a comprehensive set of entry requirements, including extensive health documentation and mandatory quarantine periods. Furthermore, diplomatic disputes in border regions have sometimes spurred temporary bans or delays in visa processing for Indian citizens. While China remains open to trade and limited diplomatic engagements, the practical challenges and bureaucratic hurdles associated with securing a visa have made entry for average Indian tourists and business travelers significantly more difficult. 9. Myanmar. Myanmar has experienced dramatic political upheaval following the military coup in 2021. The resulting instability, widespread protests, and violent crackdowns have had a profound impact on the country's international relations and travel policies. The military-led government has imposed severe restrictions on foreign visitors, particularly those from nations that have publicly supported democratic movements or expressed concern over human rights violations. Indian passport holders, viewed through the prism of regional geopolitics, have found themselves subject to stringent visa controls and are often denied entry. The deteriorating state of consular services and the volatile internal security situation mean that Myanmar is not a viable destination for Indians seeking leisure or business travel in 2025. 10. Iraq. Iraq has worked hard to rebuild in the aftermath of decades of conflict and instability, yet significant challenges remain. While there have been improvements in certain areas, the overall security situation in Iraq continues to be precarious, especially outside major urban centers. The Iraqi government, aiming to minimize risks to its citizens and visitors alike, has implemented rigorous entry protocols. For Indian travelers, this translates into an almost insurmountable barrier to entry. Visa processing is subject to delays and often requires sponsorship or proof of significant financial means, while the presence of multiple armed groups and the threat of terrorism add layers of complexity. As a result, the Iraqi state remains one of the countries where Indian passport holders are either explicitly denied entry or face such onerous conditions that practical travel becomes nearly impossible. The world is a complex tapestry of cultures, politics, and historical ties. In 2025, the challenges faced by Indian travelers in these countries are a reflection of broader geopolitical realities, internal security concerns, and evolving immigration policies. It is important to remember that these restrictions are not necessarily indicative of a blanket policy against Indians per se, but rather a confluence of factors that have led to stringent border controls and selective entry rules. As global dynamics continue to shift, these policies may be revisited or altered, making it essential for travelers to remain informed and exercise caution. For those planning international travel, keeping abreast of the latest advisories and maintaining open channels with relevant embassies can make the difference between a safe journey and unforeseen complications. The situation in these countries is ever-changing, and while the current landscape may seem daunting, diplomatic efforts and international dialogues remain in place to address these issues. Ultimately, the restrictions faced by Indian passport holders in these regions serve as a reminder of the importance of global cooperation and the need for robust international frameworks that prioritize both security and the free movement of people.